and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Humm.
I'm Ann Northrup.
And we are taping on the Transgender Day of Remembrance, November 20th.
A lot of people to remember on this day, and a lot of people alive to deal with. The Trump cabinet nominees are becoming more and more grotesque.
But out Colorado Governor Jared Polis has hailed the choice of RFK Jr. for Secretary of Health and Human Services.
We've told you about how black people were getting vicious, threatening texts after the election of Donald Trump. Well,
and women.
Yes. And now LGBTQ people and Latino people are also receiving anonymous harassing texts in the wake of the election.
This is sort of the big story of the week. The Republicans are targeting Sarah McBride with a bathroom bill. She's the new first transgender elected member of Congress.
From Delaware. Mm-hmm. And in the waning days of the Biden administration, don't hold your breath for more of this, the U.S. Department of Education is faulting the Oklahoma school district for its neglect of LGBTQ student Nex Benedict.
Yes, and I did get a number of emails from departments of the federal government for the Transgender Day of Remembrance from the administration.
Again, save them. They will be antiques
they will be.
To treasure.
Vermont has elected an out gay 21-year-old to its state house.
I like these young people coming along. We did the 17-year-old or 19-year-old? 19 last week, 21
Utah.
This week. Texas Republicans, the older ones, have filed 32 new anti-LGBTQ bills in their state house, mostly, of course, anti-trans.
The neo-Nazi killer of gay student Blaze Bernstein, 19 years old, was sentenced to life in prison.
It was Blaze who was 19. That's in California.
Right.
The United States Postal Service is honoring Keith Haring with a love stamp.
The country of Mali and Uzbekistan are making draconian anti-LGBTQ moves.
And the first case of the new, more virulent strain of MPOX has surfaced in California.
And if you don't watch to the end, get your shots. Denzel says his same-sex kiss was cut from Gladiator II.
So ironic.
Yes, we will explain.
Wow, Denzel, you've come a long way, baby. And we are now hearing for the first time that James Dean was extorted by an older gay man in the 1950s.
And I'm going to give you my reviews from Broadway of Tammy Faye, Maybe Happy Ending, and Swept Away.
And I'll review a couple of documentaries, too.
Yes, you will.
Yeah.
So Trump says he will use the military to assist in mass deportations, and if we let him, he'll be able to use the military for anything, including against demonstrations against him.
Yeah, in fact, we're worried about this bill that the Republicans are trying to ram through that would allow the government, the Treasury Department, to declare non-governmental organizations, nonprofits as terrorist organizations.
Student organizations.
Anybody, really, any nonprofit could be declared a terrorist organization and shut down.
A supporter of terrorism. It's so vague.
Even worse.
And there were 52 Democrats in the House supporting it, so I don't know how we're going to stop it.
Well, we did stop it on the first go-round, but they're gonna keep at it.
Now, since Trump's election, various groups of people have been receiving these anonymous harassing texts. We talked about blacks, feminists, and now Latinos and LGBTQ people. What they're saying to Latinos is, you've been selected for deportation. To gay LGBTQ people, report to a re-education camp. It started just hours after the race was called. Now the FBI is investigating, but who knows?
No one has come up with a source yet, which is interesting because usually when these things are sent by electronic means, someone can figure out the source reasonably quickly, but it's now been, a few weeks and they haven't figured it out yet. My least favorite outcome of all of this is the slogan, "Your body, my choice," which it doesn't get crueler than
horrendous.
that. Yeah. So these are all just scare tactics and threats. So nothing has happened yet.
There's been some polling or study of swing voters, late deciders who went Trump. They apparently went Trump about 52-38, and they seem to have, many of them bought into the relentless anti-trans messages, anti-immigrant messages, most of which were lies related to Harris, but that we can't say that they had no effect on these people.
I think just generally people are frustrated, upset by their own station in life, and when they say they want change, they want change. And this is what represented change. They're taking a chance on it.
Oh, it sure is, and we're going to go into that.
Yeah.
All right.
But Rachel Maddow said something the other night which caught my ear, that really this whole thing about recess appointments and everything Trump is talking about, deportation, it's all about creating the dictatorship, the unitary government,
right,
where he makes all decisions and is in charge of everything. It's an attempt to destroy our entire system.
Checks and balances.
Yeah, gone.
And speaking of MSNBC, Ann and I will not be going down to Mar-a-Lago to meet with Trump and try to make peace.
Look, yeah. I watched Joe and Mika. I have very mixed feelings about them, but I think, they're right back to criticizing him the next day.
Well, they've taken a lot of hits for,
I know
they're
they have.
bending the knee.
Well, I don't think they bent the knee. I think they said, we want to talk.
I want Morning Joe to be hosted by Joe Biden and Jill Biden.
I don't.
I think it'd be fun.
Look,
tune in.
The great moment in morning TV was when Joe and Mika hung up on Trump in one of his telephone interviews back in 2015 or 16.
Well,
just boom, hung up on him.
Trump is hanging up on us. Since we taped last week, you've all heard about he wants to make Matt Gaetz the Attorney General of the United States. This is obviously the way to make America great. This is the greatest lawyer in the country. Even Liberty Counsel called the choice shocking and disappointing. The founder of the Federalist Society called him absolutely the founder of The Federalist called him absolutely vile. But Michelle Goldberg is sort of saying what you're saying. Once Trump won, decent outcomes for the country were probably off the table.
Yeah, I think he wants this. This is
it's trolling.
Yeah, he's trolling, and meanwhile he's put his lawyer in as second in command at DOJ, who will actually run the department while we're all having our heads explode over Matt Gaetz.
Well, and then right-wing Wisconsin U.S. Senator Ron Johnson compared Rachel Levine at HHS, transgender undersecretary, her being trans to Matt Gaetz's sex trafficking allegations. Why didn't you look into her? And this is the way the kind of things.
Look into her. She hasn't done anything wrong. She's just a person.
Of course not. Now, the woman now in her 20s who accused Gaetz of having sex with her for pay when she was 17.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Apparently, well, when she was, yes, it is when you're underage. And apparently the payment was made by Matt Gaetz's son, the guy he calls his son.
And didn't they use Venmo?
Yes. The Justice Department didn't bring charges against Gaetz, but there is a House ethics report that we all want to see, including many Republicans.
Well, I think the reason they didn't bring charges was it was a little murky about whether she had consented and about whether he knew she was underage.
Well, you can't consent when you're underage.
But the murky part is, did he know? Should he have known?
Credibility.
Whatever.
Well, yes, you have to know. I mean, you can't go I'm 21 or I'm 52.
No, but are you supposed to check people's driver's licenses?
Yes. All right.
I'm not defending Matt Gaetz.
No, of course not. But
I am not.
he's the scum of the earth.
He is, in many, many ways.
And I'm quoting Republicans.
Yeah.
RFK?
Sure.
Well, so RFK Jr., Mike Pence is opposing him. He says Kennedy is not pro-life. The New York Post is opposing him. Now, RFK Jr.
Pence doesn't like him because he's not conservative enough.
Right. RFK Jr. opposes puberty blockers, says, I don't think children can genuinely consent to repurposed
Castration drugs. I want to know if any of these people who are saying things like this have ever met trans kids, have ever had a conversation with them.
Or do they care?
But no, of course they don't, because it's a good selling point for them. But it is so ignorant, so cruel, so exploitative.
Kennedy keeps getting referred to by the mainstream media as a vaccine skeptic. No, he is a vaccine opponent. He says no vaccine is safe, which is a lie. I've been shooting up for years. He famously wants to rot your teeth, taking fluoride out of the water. I know that's controversial.
It is.
But it is a cause straight out of Dr. Strangelove. And though fluoride, by the way, fluoride has already been added to most toothpaste and mouthwashes. So
absolutely,
if you use those things.
The question seems to be the amount. The dose.
He says he's in favor of healthier eating, which is all to the good.
And then did a photo op with Trump sitting there eating McDonald's.
After castigating Trump for what he ate. Then he had to sit there and eat, not crow, but a Big Mac.
If ever there was a picture that personified bending the knee to Trump, that would be it.
He promotes raw milk, even though it can carry E. coli and bird flu virus. He wants to fire the FDA nutritionist. His cousin, Caroline Kennedy Schlossberg, daughter of the late president and our ambassador to Australia, she is our ambassador to Australia, called RFK Jr.'s vaccination views dangerous.
His entire family has rejected him.
Correct. But then there's Governor Jared Polis, the out-gay governor of Colorado,
who says, I appreciate Bobby's support of shutting down vaccine mandates. And
he's excited by this appointment. And he says he will help make America healthy again by shaking up the HHS and the FDA. Now, he's come in from criticism from his state party and Hawaii Governor Josh Green. They said they're making parents scared. Polis responded that science must remain the cornerstone of health policy, but he still wants that shakeup.
Well, here's the thing. For, 50, 60, 70 years, we've been complaining about government agencies and wanting to shake them up. We hate the FBI for what they've done. We hate all sorts of the FDA, too slow on cures or treatments for HIV.
But are these the people to fix it?
Well, that's the question. There is a long, long list. So theoretically, one could say the government needs shaking up, but are these the people to do it? Of course not, right. Especially with the kinds of things they're threatening.
Well, will ACT UP meet with him since he doesn't think HIV is the cause of AIDS?
Well, perhaps they will try to. We'd meet with anybody. The point is to try to get their ear and convince them otherwise. I'm in favor of meeting with people and talking to them, and then when they don't agree with me, then I'll chain myself to their front doors.
Well, and before you did that, I met with the Cardinal and about 16 LGBTQ activists.
See?
I'm all for meeting, but they don't listen. They don't listen.
No, they're dug in.
Right.
But the real question is, some of these people may be malleable in their thinking or have some underlying decent ideas, but is Trump just going to stamp all that out? He's not looking for anyone to be open-minded about anything. He has his agenda, and that's what he wants to impose.
Well, he's looking to stamp Ukraine out, and he's trying to get Defense Secretary nominee Fox News host Pete Hegseth in there. Also has sexual assault charges, and by the way, so does RFK Jr., that were made against him by a woman that he paid off. On top of that, he is covered in tattoos that are white supremacist and Nazi in origin, including the Jerusalem cross, which is used by Christian nationalists. So he's saying, you're persecuting me for being a Christian.
he was taken off the detail for the Biden inauguration because of these tattoos.
When he was in the Army or whatever he was in.
And I heard something today. Or National Guard, I think. But someone who actually served with him said this guy doesn't even begin to have leadership qualities. Right. He's a mess.
Right. And then there's Dr. Oz, who they want to run Medicaid and Medicare. He supports Trump's hydroxychloroquine to ward off COVID. He did that. He hyped sham weight loss products.
Green coffee beans.
And he is just insane.
Well, he's also a very successful and prominent heart surgeon who gave all that up to go into the wacko field. But it's, again, this strange anomaly. He was a very successful heart surgeon. Then he gets the TV show, thank you, Oprah, and he climbed on the crazy train.
But Medicaid and Medicare are very well-run programs, basically. I mean, I'm not saying they can't. I'm not saying in terms
of a lot of fraud in Medicare.
And they all say they're going to stop the fraud.
Yes.
What about what insurance companies do to you?
Absolutely.
They operate with much lower overhead. So
Medicare, Medicaid, absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. But if Dr. Oz goes in there and cleans up the fraud, hallelujah. I know, I'm being...
I know. All right.
Whatever. And then Linda McMahon, do we care about her?
Oh, I mean, she's considered mainstream at this point. She served in the last administration.
Yeah, but she's going to be tasked with closing down the Department of Education.
Yes.
And the problem there is that everything will revert to the states, and as we will tell you, there are states now inserting biblical instruction in their public school curriculum.
The Department of Education has been on our side in the states and trying, especially for LGBTQ youth. They will. I can't imagine they'll be sticking up for LGBTQ youth anymore.
Well, here's my...
And I feel for you all out there.
Here's my favorite rumored appointment to take the seat of Marco Rubio in Florida.
Oh, Lara Trump?
Yes.
Yes.
The daughter-in-law, who's the co-chair of the Republican National Committee, is rumored to be the number one on the list to replace Marco Rubio as senator from Florida.
That's what Trump wants. What is DeSantis? I thought DeSantis was thinking of his wife.
I don't know if he could pull that off, and I don't know if he would dare.
He could take it himself if he wants it.
He could.
All right, let's get to a Republican mean woman, Nancy Mace of South Carolina, Congresswoman. She's introduced a bill to bar trans people from facilities on Capitol Hill that match their gender identities, and assault on mainly on the newly elected Sarah McBride of Delaware, but it would apply to all people. If her bill is not included in the rules package for Congress or is a standalone bill, she intends to force a vote on it.
That's Sarah McBride on the right there, who was elected since Delaware has only one member of the House. She was elected statewide in Delaware after serving a number of terms in the state House in Delaware. She's very popular in her state and won more votes than the candidates for governor or senator in Delaware. Very popular politician. This is just a complete slap in the face to her by Nancy Mace, who, if you read Nancy Mace's record, you would see that for some time she was extremely pro-LGBTQ.
Because she had a swing district in South Carolina, and as soon as they redistricted it and made it more conservative, she became a monster.
Whew.
Totally MAGA.
Boom.
Now, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, said everyone will be treated with dignity and respect. He said it's a new issue. We're going to do it in a deliberate fashion with member consensus on it, and we will accommodate the needs of every single person. That's all I'm going to say. You think she's a woman? I'm not talking about that, he said.
You know what they're going to do. They're going to assign her a bathroom 3 miles away that is what she's supposed to use.
This is what happened when women were first elected to the House.
Yes, they didn't have any women's restrooms.
They were sent,
Yeah, well, an activist came up with the best idea, which was to have a GoFundMe to raise money to buy a porta potty for Nancy Mace.
Yes, because she's so upset. Nancy Mace misgendered Sarah, so they're going to be referring to the gentleman from Delaware on the floor.
Yep.
And I don't know how Mike Johnson or anybody chairing is going to handle that. But she said she doesn't belong in women's spaces, bathrooms, and locker rooms. Now, Sarah said she expected trouble from some conservatives. Those are Republican members of Congress who can't work with any Democrat and can barely work with their own Republican colleagues. So I will find Republicans I can work with.
And this also is she's the clear target because she's so visible. But there are trans people working on Capitol Hill, and they are going to be affected by this, and they're all going to be hunted down and thrown out of restrooms.
Right. It's disgusting.
It is.
And it goes on. And Texas Republicans have filed 32 anti-trans bills for the new session, which has already started, touching on nearly every aspect of their lives. It requires chromosome tests for student athletes. Chromosome tests, in a state where not a lot of health care is available. It bars trans individuals from public bathrooms aligned with their identity. The bill offers a $5,000 bounty for suing anyone performing in drag. Could ban all pride celebrations. Parental permission is needed to join a gay-straight alliance,
which is illegal.
A violation of the Equal Access Act. So, wow. Texas.
And government IDs will be unavailable to trans people in their lived gender. They also, in the midst of these, are proposing optional Bible inclusion in the public school curricula and offering extra payment to schools, like $60 per student for introducing biblical education. And of course, we're talking about Christian religious education.
The wall of separation is down there and in many places. But the U.S. Department of Education did find that Nex Benedict's Oklahoma school district accountable for fostering a hostile climate for the LGBTQ youth who took their own life on the day after being bullied. The Oasis school district failed Nex and other vulnerable students in their care.
Although, of course, we have, Ryan Walters, the superintendent of education in Oklahoma, also pushing for...
There he is in prayer in a video.
Yeah. He wants people to pray for Trump.
Well,
He's bought 500 Trump Bibles.
He has announced a new Department of Religious Liberty and Patriotism, and he's demanding that this 1.5-minute video that he did be shown to every student and sent to every parent. And so the school districts are resisting and saying, we're not doing that. You can't make us. And the Attorney General of Oklahoma said, you can't do this. You're violating free exercise rights, local control. You can't do it.
And you said, you talked about the Department of Education and Nex Benedict.
Let's go to Vermont for a section.
Yes, some good news.
Out gay Will Greer, 21 years old, was elected to the Vermont House of Representatives. Born and raised in Texas, he came to Vermont to study writing at Bennington College and was drawn into local politics. He ended up with a BA in public administration. He said, I got asked about my age more than anything, not about,
You'd think.
Not about being gay.
He's 21 now. He's already served as a justice of the peace on the police advisory board and as secretary of the Democratic Party in Vermont.
He's a lot of energy. But this is the state where out lesbian Becca Balint was just reelected to the U.S. House of Representatives.
Oasis of sanity.
With a Republican governor
and Bernie Sanders.
With a Republican governor who would not endorse Trump.
Yeah.
So anyway, but he was endorsed by the Victory Fund. And then out U.S. Representative Richie Torres, Democrat of the Bronx, made a big speech about how New York is misgoverned. And a friend of his is saying he's looking to run for governor in 2026. But Richie seems to be moving way to the right on a lot of issues.
Well, Mike Lawler's going to run for governor, too. And he's the Republican Congress member who just got reelected over Mondaire Jones, who used to be a Congress member in that district. It's going to be a big fight. Kathy Hochul is in trouble in New York.
Okay. And all right, so we talked about that.
All right. In North Carolina, we note in Transgender Day of Remembrance. This week we remember Gwanisha Shante, 26 years old, trans woman murdered by an ex-boyfriend, shot into her car. She had, the people talk about how can these kids know anything. She asked to transition at age 11. Mm-hmm. Her mother was completely supportive, and that was 15 years ago. A great loss. She was in nursing school, and she was into ballroom performance.
In Indiana, a 3-judge panel of the U.S. 7th Circuit Court of Appeals is allowing the state's ban on gender-affirming care to go into effect. The law was signed by Governor Eric Holcomb, who called it, when he signed it, "This is clear as mud," and he signed it anyway. The judges split 2-1 along party lines. The issue of trans care for minors will be argued before the U.S. Supreme Court in a Tennessee case on December the 4th, and by Chase Strangio, who is an out trans lawyer. I don't know what bathroom they're going to let him use, but this is, I can't say I'm optimistic.
The judge in this case in Indiana was challenged about, these kids need treatment. And he said, this doesn't kill all treatment. They can get therapy. Okay. And
the Wyoming abortion ban was overturned by a district judge who said it violated the state constitution, which guarantees the right of people to make their own health care decisions.
Well, we don't win them all in court, but we win a lot of them.
And California, we didn't note the margin here. Prop 3 passed, ensuring same-sex and interracial marriages. It won by 25 points, a long way from Prop 8 in 2008, which narrowly lost. And Orange County had a school board election. They elected a new majority, and they reversed all the crap by the previous administration there, mostly anti-LGBTQ.
In Ohio, the legislature has passed a mandatory bathroom of birth sex bill. Now awaits the signature of the governor. Don't know which way he will go, but he is a fairly conservative Republican. But he's been known to veto stuff. But this is exactly what Nancy Mace is proposing for Capitol Hill.
All right. Should we talk about some crime news? In Newport Beach, California, the killer of 19-year-old gay man Blaze Bernstein was found guilty of the 2018 murder over the summer, and he's now been sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. His name is Samuel Woodward, now 27. He's the guy on the left with all the long hair, now 27. He stabbed Bernstein 28 times and buried him in a park in Lake Forest. The judge said Woodward had shown no remorse. He was not at the sentencing due to mental illness. The judge said it was really sad that two people from the same high school found themselves on opposite ends of the culture war that erupted into this brutal murder. Woodward had been involved in a neo-Nazi group. Bernstein, a University of Pennsylvania student, was dedicated to making the world safer for Jewish and LGBTQ people.
Right. In Palm Springs, California, a little cringeworthy news, the CEO of QueerWorks, a local agency that helps LGBTQ people with mental health, basic income, people in need. But Jacob Rotofsky has been indicted and charged with stealing $940,000 from the agency.
53 felony counts, even more than Trump.
Please don't do that.
Oh, what?
No, steal money like that. I'm talking to Jacob.
Okay.
I'm not talking to you.
Okay. Anyway, he stole a lot of it from what was supposed to be a basic income program for trans people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so disgusting. It went into his pocket. The city council is now saying, no, we need to monitor our grants a little more closely and have accountability, don't we?
I know. We trust and sometimes we lose.
Yeah.
In Minneapolis, Minnesota, 2 trans women were leaving a train.
Yeah, a light rail.
And somebody shouted an anti-trans slur at them as they were leaving, so they turned around to respond and wham, got attacked and beaten up by a whole crowd.
Knocked unconscious,
Yeah.
one with a broken nose, the other with a concussion to the rib. No one came to their aid.
And
Some
in fact, a lot
cheered the
yeah.
attackers.
Yeah.
No arrests.
Tim Waltz, you have work to do still in Minnesota.
And the victims of the Club Q mass shooting in Colorado Springs in 2022 are now suing the club and the sheriff's office for negligence. They say it could have been prevented if county officials had followed the law. 5 were killed, 19 injured. The perp, a guy named Anderson Aldridge, was sentenced to 55 consecutive life sentences to run and 74 and 190 years in prison for hate crimes. But the suit says the club reduced security to save money and says the sheriff's office failed to enforce the red flag law that could have prevented the killer's access to firearms.
On Staten Island, a police officer, Christopher Terranova, thank you, is now on trial this week for enticing and sexually assaulting 4 teenage boys, young teenage boys.
Yeah, I knew how to say his name because we had Terranova's florist and where I'm from.
I was just trying to read my own handwriting.
Shall we let them know?
Lansing, Michigan.
Yeah, right.
Holy Cross Services, another big nonprofit serving homeless people
Yes.
and people in need. But a function, Holy Cross, a function of Catholic Charities or whatever, has fired their CEO and president, Ryan Kunzelman, for being too supportive of LGBTQ people.
Now, where's the Holy Father when you need him to
And
say,
there are no religious services
exactly.
connected to this. It's not like he's a minister. He's just running this agency called Holy Cross, and they didn't like the fact that he was serving LGBTQ people. Boom, out the door.
If the Catholic Church gets rid of all its gays, first of all, you're not going to have half the bishopric or priesthood. Seriously, I mean, if they really want to hunt people down, it's awful.
It's all awful. So a slight detour to not awful. The United States Postal Service.
This is good.
Yes, not awful.
That's better than not awful. Okay.
Yes, has announced 2 new forever stamps. One for Betty White, the late Betty White, of course, universally beloved, and one for Keith Haring, who died in 1990 at the age of 31 of HIV complications.
Right. That's not the love picture that Haring drew on the walls of the men's room of the LGBTQ Community Center, which is a lot more explicit.
But it's one of his images,
and
yes. It's very lovely, and it's nice that the Postal Service...
Keep the image up, because the art director of the Postal Service says, this one's non-specificity of the figures allows a variety of people to see themselves in this stamp.
Very interesting. On the Trans Day of Remembrance.
Yes.
It's nice. Non-binary figures from Keith Haring.
Right.
Not so nice, Charlotte, North Carolina. The Charlotte Hornets basketball team has a guard, LaMelo Bell. LaMelo Bell is being interviewed there. And in that interview, he said things that have now drawn a $100,000 fine from the league.
He used the term homo, and he wasn't talking about Homo sapiens.
He was asked about his defensive strategy in the game, and he said, yeah, we loaded up, no homo.
Yep.
It doesn't even make sense.
Then he says,
23 years old.
$100,000 fine. I really didn't mean anything by it, and I don't want to offend anybody. I've got love for everybody, and I don't discriminate.
Then why'd you say it?
The league said it was offensive, and $100,000, please. Now
we have to train people to not be so quick with this language.
Yes. We've told you how San Jose State University has reportedly let a trans woman play on their volleyball team, although this has not been verified. someone who has not come out publicly as trans, and we told you that many teams in the Mountain West Conference have forfeited games rather than play them against them. So now, San Jose's co-captain and 10 other athletes from other schools are suing, saying their Title IX rights are being violated. They want to expel the player in question and have their forfeits reversed. But under the law, it's the sports authorities that decide eligibility, and it varies. Caitlyn Jenner, however, is backing the suit, and now San Jose, because the coach is involved in this, she has been suspended from San Jose.
Now, Caitlyn Jenner, who was welcomed to the women's restrooms in Trump Tower by her pal, Donald Trump, when she transitioned. Immediately.
I don't think we're going to be hearing anything about that anymore.
Well, I think the press should be smart enough to ask Trump, hey, you were very welcoming of Caitlyn Jenner in women's restrooms. What's with Nancy Mace?
They never confronted him about how he welcomed trans women into the Miss Universe pageant. It was not raised. It should have been raised by Harris, by the way.
Yes.
But she never did, because she never wanted to linger on the issue.
And was tongue-tied about how to handle it.
Right.
All right.
I mean, Andy Beshear, who's the governor of Kentucky, was asked about this. And that's the way the press wants to ask it. Well, what do you think about trans girls and girls sports? You know, this is on CBS, Face the Nation. And he says, look, I vetoed a bill where they tried to ban care. I do it out of my faith. Because we're all God's children. And that's the way he talks about it, you know, and it sounds very affirmative. They're just afraid to talk that way.
Well, you have to reposition it as these are human beings.
Yes.
You are human beings. They are human beings. We're all human beings. And do you really want to
I don't know about Nancy Mace. I have questions about that.
Facetious. All right. Well, and finally in this section, we remember fondly Kathy Cade, 82 years old, just died.
Berkeley, California.
A really legendary photographer of lesbians, feminists, civil rights. She was involved in all these movements for years.
She was a member of the Bay Area Civil Rights Veterans and Old Lesbians Organizing for Change, and she's survived by 2 sons and famous as one of the first to give birth to a turkey baster baby, which she was very proud of.
Well, good for her, and she lived a good long life, so...
Yes.
Whatever.
Okay.
International news.
Well, Mali, the country of Mali, under military rule since 2021, they passed a law, and it's majority Muslim there, making homosexuality a criminal offense, which it had not previously been. But the law that they had was penalizing public indecency, which they did use to prosecute and persecute LGBTQ people. The new law bans the promotion of homosexuality. LGBTQ activists there say, we all live in constant fear now more than ever. The African Charter on Human Rights, which Mali adopted, condemns violence and discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity, but the junta doesn't care.
And what's up with Uzbekistan?
So Trump's election is inspiring right-wing governments to crack down further on LGBTQ people. So the leader of a partner in the ruling coalition in Uzbekistan is working on a bill to ban discussions of LGBTQ people entirely. He referenced a post by Ivanka Trump promoting her daddy's opposition to inappropriate sexual content and transgender ideology in schools. Trump, of course, has introduced all manner of inappropriate sexual content into the news and as I said, supported trans contestants at the Miss Universe contest, but that was then. Homosexuality is already punishable up to 3 years in prison in Uzbekistan. It's a Muslim majority nation. Gay and bi men there face abuse from vigilante mobs and the police. 5 men had to pay bribes of up to $1,000, an awful lot of money there, to keep police from exposing them publicly.
I suppose, given Trump's record, we should understand that sexual assault against women by men is a criterion for appointment to the Trump cabinet.
It was awful.
But I want to mention what happened in China this week, where 45 pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong have been sentenced to prison for at least 10 years. Now, that's exactly what Trump wants to do. And the bill that is currently being fought for in the House is about labeling activists or pro-democracy people as terrorists, convicting them and sending them to prison.
Right.
So this is all just a model for what is coming our way.
And then there's Saudi Arabia, sponsor of the part of the American Pro Golf Tour. It's slated to
tennis.
Slated to host the World Cup. It has now executed 100 foreigners this year, a new record, 3 times the amount in 2022. Most are beheaded, many on drug charges, and the penalty for homosexuality there is death. And they're having the World Cup there.
I suspect people listening to or watching this show this week are going to find it very negative and depressing.
It's depressing for us to have to deal with all this every week.
I would just encourage people to take a deep breath and look around them and remind those who can do so that you may be able to continue living your life without all of this coming down on you personally, immediately. Not true for everybody, but...
we have to support each other and take care of each other.
Exactly.
Be less hard on each other.
Yep.
All right.
All right. AIDS and health news.
Yeah. Well, California had its first case of the new strain of MPOX called Clade 1. It's funny, we had Clade 2, and now this is new,
Clade
but
1.
it's Clade 1. San Mateo County patient is isolating while recovering. They're doing contact tracing, but the health authorities are saying the risk is very low, but it's
Because the person they've discovered with it traveled to Africa where this is outbroken, and so they think that this is perhaps containable, not something that's popping up widely there.
Not to depress you further, but the Affordable Care Act is threatened. Mike Johnson promises massive changes. An expansion of the act expires at the end of 2025, leading to much higher premiums for many of you. Now, Biden added subsidies, and the enrollment jumped 80% from 12 million in 2021 to 21.4 million this year, mostly from poor and moderate income families. So individuals and families will have to drop coverage as the GOP and RFK Jr. go wild on health care.
This is a Dr. Oz event, first of all.
And GOP is also eyeing cuts to Medicare and Medicaid to offset their tax cut plans.
Well, that's going to be the...
Tax cuts for the rich, you lose your health care. And J.D. Vance advocated in September separating out people who have pre-existing conditions, put them in their own high-risk pool, and it'll be cheaper for the rest of us.
Get a job. That's their answer.
Wow.
By the way, for those of you concerned about MPOX, as we all should be, the symptoms to look for are a rash, sores, flu-like symptoms.
We would show you pictures, but we don't want to depress you further.
It's bad enough. All right, shall we move on to entertainment news? Maybe there'll be some fun there.
Well, let's talk about Leonardo, the documentary by Ken Burns that's been running this week.
As an art history major, I refer to him as Leonardo.
Leonardo.
Anyway, 4 hours.
Da Vinci.
Well, that's just where he's from. Leonardo is his name. But 4 hours of Ken Burns on Leonardo on PBS. You can watch it online at pbs.org, although there are repeats this week on your local PBS station. You can look for that. It's an overwhelming amount of material. I watched the whole thing. You get lost in it. There's so much. The art, the scientific exploration. He seems like a genius from another planet.
A Renaissance man.
Well, way beyond that, because he's so far advanced from anyone else and so creative and original and so astonishing in his mind and in his execution.
It's not just the Mona Lisa.
Oh, my God, no.
Or the Last Supper.
Oh, yes, thousands of things. But I would recommend it, even though it is overwhelming. But it's so inspiring to see someone so amazing execute all these things and be so forward-thinking.
Someone from our own species.
Someone from our own sexual orientation.
Well, they talk about when he was 24, he got caught up in a sting of an arrest of a bunch of guys for sodomy. At the time when it was the death penalty, but one of the guys arrested turned out to be a Medici, and the Medici said, let's call it all. Let's not prosecute these guys.
And then the narration says, of course, homosexuality was very, very common in the 15th century in Italy, and portray it as like no big deal. Well, I'd love to think that, but it was a little glib. But then they talked about a couple of kids who came to him as apprentices, and as they grew up, they became lovers of his. And they're sort of carried through the series very matter-of-factly. And so while it doesn't go into great depth about the place and times and flavor, it does sort of matter-of-factly accept the fact that he was attracted to members of his own gender.
It is a breakthrough for Ken Burns, who I have complained repeatedly in many documentaries has buried our history.
Well, he tends to be sort of bland and homogenizing things.
Yeah.
I've seen some of his things that I liked, and some I liked less.
There's a lot that I like about his work, but when he just fails, when he talks about Eleanor Roosevelt's friends were lesbians, and then doesn't talk about her sexuality,
right?
It's offensive.
Right. Well, you can.
And First Ladies is running on PBS again in repeats, and they certainly deal with Hick, who was Eleanor's partner.
There's so much to watch. Here are some more.
Okay. Tell me about the...
Gladiator.
Oh, my God. So...
Gladiator II.
Last week we talked to you that Turkey banned the movie Queer, starring Daniel Craig. This week it's English director of Gladiator II, Ridley Scott, starring Denzel Washington, who said, I kissed a guy full on the lips in the movie, and I guess they weren't ready for that yet.
That's Denzel talking.
Yes, he plays Macrinus, a wealthy power broker in Rome who keeps a stable of gladiators. The script mentions his character had been in relationships with men. Denzel said the creators got chicken about the kiss, and they cut it. Now, this from Denzel.
Well, this is rich from Denzel, who famously warned Will Smith many years ago not to let the filmmakers force him to kiss a man in the film version of 6 Degrees of Separation.
The quote was, don't be kissing no man. Now, this was a long time ago, but still. But Denzel's getting Oscar buzz for this role, and I guess he's trying to attract interest by giving frank interviews.
And people are expecting...
He also gave an interview this week saying, we all knew about Kevin Spacey years ago. He's really talking it up.
We did. He was right about that. All right, so on to actual explicit, but not this explicit, Sex Lives of College Girls, one of my favorite streaming series, is returning to Max for its 3rd season. The first 2 seasons were great.
What's this all about?
Well, it's college.
Sex Lives of College Girls.
But it's more dating lives than sex lives. But a few years ago when we all started watching all these streaming things, I said there were 3 shows that I loved. One was Dairy Girls, which please watch Dairy Girls if
with
you haven't
subtitles.
Seen it. Must use the subtitles, and it's brief. Sex Education,
yes.
Also fantastic series, and Sex Lives of College Girls. So the first 2 seasons aired some years ago. Now they're back with season 3. This series really brought Renee Rapp to prominence, who then came out. She is not a regular character this time, but does make occasional appearances. She's terrific. And this all starts this week on Max, Sex Lives of College Girls.
All right, second gay story on James Dean this month. We told you about how a movie's being made about his gay college roommate with who was the late William Bast. We now learn that he had a liaison in 1951 with an advertising man named Rogers Brackett, an older guy who helped Dean early in his career while exploiting him and then extorted him on the eve of the premiere of East of Eden. Give me the money or I'm going public. And Dean responded, I didn't know it was the whore who paid.
I read it as the wife who paid.
Oh.
I didn't know it was the wife who paid. It was about him being the bottom, I guess.
I thought it was it was W ... But anyway, wife.
Whatever.
Two different things. Anyway, I thought it was the other way around. Yeah. But he did pay the equivalent of $14,500 in today's dollars to make the scandal go away. It's all in James Colavito's new book, Jimmy: The Secret Life of James Dean. The author says Brackett got a psychiatrist to help Dean out of the military service by certifying him as a homosexual.
Yeah, so on the one hand, he's telling him to out himself to the Army, and on the other hand, blackmailing him to keep him from getting movie roles. That was the 1950s. It was a crazy time. Just like the 1400s in Italy.
Jackie Shane.
Jackie Shane, well, this came up because the Doc NYC Film Festival is on.
Through December 1st.
Yes.
Go to docnyc.org.
No, .net.
Not net. Sorry. It'll be in our email.
So there are a couple of documentaries in this wonderful festival, which is on every year. And one of them is Jackie Shane, the Jackie Shane story, Any Other Way. That was her big hit song. She was a trans woman and very, very out about it in the 1950s and had both success and rejection for it. I watched the documentary. I loved it. It's so rich and so interesting. And they use a technique. They talked to her, a filmmaker talked to her on the phone in the last year of her life and has all that recorded, but has no in-person interview with her. So they have film of her that they've sort of colorized and animated. So some you see her real and some in this stylized way. But she's fascinating. The whole story is fascinating. Really recommend it. And this and the next film I'm about to tell you about, are available for you to buy a ticket to stream before the December 1st.
After their premiere, then they are available for streaming.
Right. So
and that's all going to be in our email.
So that's the Jackie Shane story. Any other way, the Jackie Shane story.
And then our pal Stacy Ann Chin.
Stacy Ann Chin, A Mother Apart. And this is a wild documentary that is about how her mother sort of ran off and left her with her grandparents in Jamaica shortly after she was born. And then went and established another life elsewhere and had another child. And
we saw a stage show about this.
We did, but this is following Stacy Ann as she relentlessly hunts down her mother, tries to establish a relationship with her, has good and bad experiences, talks to her mother's old friends, rediscovers her sister.
And is a mother herself.
And it's a lot about her and her daughter, who is gorgeous and brilliant at 6. So A Mother Apart is the Stacy Ann Chin documentary. Again, if you go to docnyc.net, you can find both these documentaries and purchase tickets to stream them.
All right, Broadway. This is the one you've been waiting for, and it's closing December 8th early. Tammy Faye, the musical at the Palace Theater. It's basically about a gay man, Jim Baker, played by Christian Borle, who teams up with a female drag queen, Tammy Faye, played by Katie Brayburn, who won the Olivier Award for it in London. So despite, or maybe because, it has music by Elton John, a book by the great James Graham, and direction by Rupert Gurlt, all of whom I admire, it has not traveled well from London. It's sort of a satire on religious fundamentalism that's not funny. And it's a tribute to Tammy, who tried to be more loving in the evangelical world. But that doesn't, that's in the face of her complicity in a scam ministry.
I know. Everybody's so quick to say, oh, wasn't she wonderful? She invited a guy with HIV on the show. Yeah.
I liked out gay Michael Cerverus, though. He plays Jerry Falwell, and that's about it. Anyway, then there's Maybe Happy Ending. That's the name of it, at the Belasco. The Robot Musical from South Korea, this is one of the best reviewed shows of the year, starring Darren Criss and Helen J. Shen as abandoned help bots living on borrowed software and batteries. And it was a sweet surprise. It's very inventive, funny, and touching.
You remember Darren Criss from Glee.
Sure. It's about the possibility of love in odd circumstances. So go with it. Anyway. And then I think you'll need to be fans of the Avett Brothers to enjoy their new musical, Swept Away, about the shipwreck of a whaling vessel in the 1880s. It's very dark, but also ended up being rather lugubrious, despite a cast led by John Gallagher and a book by John Logan. Again, strictly for Avett Brothers devotees at the Longacre Theater. I know our friend Jesse Green liked it very much on the Times, but there you are.
Yeah, maybe instead 4 hours of Leonardo on PBS in the 1400s would be more edifying.
And then coming up on December 6th in New York is Forgetting the Many, the Royal Pardon of Alan Turing. This will be at Cinema Village for a week, and I'm going to be there for the premiere and interviewing many of the people connected to it about the British mathematician and scientist who was hounded for being gay, arrested for being gay. But it's a long story. I don't want to get into it all right now. It also deals with the many, the thousands of people, and they interview a handful of them, who were persecuted under these laws, and how that hurts you for your life. You get arrested for it for 10 minutes of love in 1990, and you're in the military, and then you can't get a job in what you want to do for the next 30 years. It's that kind of stuff.
It's a good thing Leonardo's career was not destroyed after his early arrest.
Such a loss. And think of all that we have lost because of these persecutions.
I've always, when people died of HIV or have these persecutions, my first thought is what a loss. What an enormous loss to all of us in the world that they are. Yeah. Their lives are ended or curtailed so young.
Better news, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is going to feature the star of Drag the Musical, Joey McIntyre.
We are fighting back. And you're going to be gone next week. Marin will be here. And then I'll be gone the following week, and Marin will be here then.
Will you be home for Christmas?
Yes, I will. And I'll be celebrating Thanksgiving with family. You'll be in London.
I don't know what I'll be doing on Thanksgiving in London.
Do they don't mention Thanksgiving in London, do they?
I mean, I think you can hunt down a turkey. Turkey's very popular over there.
Don't
for
shoot
Christmas.
It.
Huh?
Don't shoot it. I see turkeys on the golf courses in New York. There are a lot of them out there.
Yeah, they used to have turkey shoots at golf courses, meaning you got the lowest score, you got the turkey.
No, there are real turkeys on golf courses now. Yeah. They're all over the place.
All right.
All right. Well, we hope you have survived this 58 minutes of Gay USA, because we understand that it was a lot to take this week.
Yes. We've heard from viewers who, when we showed that horrible thing that Trump said last week, it was awful.
It was awful. It was painful to sit through.
But people do need to know exactly what's going to happen so they can make plans, and people are making plans.
Yes, I don't know that we'll show that horrible thing again, but we needed to. So anyway, we'll see you next week.